Coming up on this edition of Safari Changemakers.
If you are promoting something real that enriches the lives of not only the guests, but also the people around the area, if you are doing that, you're creating something very worthwhile.
This is Safari Changemakers. Conversations with Africa's most innovative visionaries, the guardians, pioneers, and trailblazers, offering solutions to the most pressing challenges facing the continent. Over-tourism, human-wildlife conflict, the climate crisis, and environmental degradation. Conversations that reveal bold strategies for sustainable tourism leading to economic opportunities for indigenous communities while protecting local ecosystems and wildlife. Here's your host, founder of Artisans of Safari, recognized by Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast Traveler magazines as one of the top travel specialists for Africa, Karin Jones.
Today I'm speaking with Matt Saus, the Managing Director of Manta Resort on Pemba, which is part of the Zanzibari Islands off the coast of Tanzania, about how they have helped turn a small protected reef into something much larger. And we'll also hear from Gary Lauder of Blue Alliance, who explains how marine protected areas, reef-positive businesses, and the Coral Reef Safari model actually works. Hi, Matt. Where are you speaking to me from today?
Well, I'm at the moment at one of my favorite places in the world, which is Pemba Island at Manta Resort. And who am I? I'm part of the Manta family. That's how I like to describe who I am. I'm part of a family of people that are doing some good things on Pemba as a tourism property. So my son happens to be with me here on Pemba with his fishing business and also doing the same kind of work that I do. So I kind of work on the fishing side of things and he works with fisheries.
For people who don't know exactly where Pemba is, kind of take us from Africa, like to exactly where Pemba is.
On the coast of East Africa, and then specifically on Zanzibar, which is an island, or actually two, that make up the archipelago of Zanzibar. The North Island, which is called Pemba. The South Island is called Unguja. And we at Manta, I'm sitting as far as you can possibly get away from everything. I mean, you literally can't go any further away because we're at the north point of the North Island.
Was Manta started as a commercial effort to bring in tourists?
The original vision for Manta was a place that divers could come and dive, scuba divers. We're on the equator, 4 degrees south of the equator. So, most of the coral reef life in the world is surrounded on the equator belt. Specialist divers and recreational divers used to come over here from Kenya originally, before any tourism really happened. And Manta was one of the very first places that any tourists ever came to the island, which wasn't that long ago. That was in the 90s. And then when I got here in 2006, it was a little different because I was looking for the perfect place to install an underwater room, which is what people know about now. But the focus has shifted with us to working more with conservation, marine conservation, and community development, and working a way that tourism can melt into it and assimilate with it in the best way possible. And that's always been a challenge right from the very beginning, because Pemba's really had a chance. Zanzibar's populated with tourism extremely quickly and in a kind of a haphazard way, without a proper strategy in the very beginning. And if there was anyone from the government sitting next to me, they'd agree that tourism was developed in a very like free-for-all kind of way, without a specific goal in mind, other than to attract tourists.
Yeah, bring in those tourists.
And Pemba, took a long time for Pemba to have any foreign visitors here. So in the middle of 2000s, we started, so it's nearly 20 years ago, we started working on the project for the underwater room, and then developed Manta into more of a destination for beachgoers, for divers, for people who just wanted to be in nature in a really pristine marine environment and marine area. And then also, obviously, the underwater room is the little cherry on the cake.
So what is Kwanini?
Kwanini means why in Swahili. It translates directly to why. And it's a question that has been asked so many times by so many people around this area concerning tourism. You know, why do people want to come here? Why does tourism, why is it important? Why put an underwater room in here? And then we kind of took that as a responsibility in a way to answer that question honestly, transparently, and to really make sure that what we answered was what we were going to deliver without making any promises that couldn't be met, and tackle the concept of Kwanini tourism, which we kind of labeled as a tourism that really is inclusive and exclusive.
Not attracting the masses.
As in not attracting the masses, but then being there and supporting and having direct benefits and a direct impact in the right way on everyone.
What are some of the challenges that are being faced in the area?
Well, I can't stress enough the value of communities understanding and being part of anything coming to this part of the world. We've reduced all our activities and everything that we've ever done into that nugget of knowledge. And there's no better way to understand the island than to spend time with the people of Pemba. Mm-hmm. So as we were developing things, it was always my goal to employ the people of Pemba and create a family here at Manta that was made up of the local community, which has been a challenge. There isn't enough infrastructure in hospitality training or in the education of tourism, etc. But in answering all those why questions, we were able to really get the community to understand that this potential model is something that can benefit them directly through employment, through induced income, through everything else that the tourism offers. There are all the commercial challenges, of course, in setting up something here in this remote place. But I think the most important challenge of all that everyone should take on board and not opt for the easy way out is to really involve the people around the investment.
And you had your idea of the underwater room.
And very, very early on realized that we were in a green field.
Yeah.
You know, we're in a position where we're not surrounded by tourism everywhere.
Yeah.
And that whatever we do, we're going to have the microscope on us. So we're going to have the magnifying glass looking at us as what is tourism, how they're operating, how does this work? And a lot of people in the northern part of Pemba were very suspicious of tourism, very suspicious of foreigners coming through and everything else. And we basically had a chance to try and do tourism the right way on Pemba and learn from the mistakes that have been made in Nguja. The low volume, high yield model that is connected to nature that delivers direct benefit to community is working.
And incredibly important to maybe the future of tourism, because I think we've got a lot of over-tourism. We've got issues with human-wildlife conflict in your area. It has to do with marine life.
Yeah, the resource of the population of this island that depend on the ocean.
Underwater room has a deeper impact.
When you experience it, there's certainly a transformation in the understanding of fish life and the thirst for knowledge of the ocean is certainly enhanced. Absolutely. I mean, we see that every time. Yeah. We're building a new underwater room now as well. So it's going to be a bit bigger and etc. to enhance the experience even further. You know, in the very beginning when we were marketing the underwater room, it was about the experiences, about sleeping underwater and waking up in the middle of the night, looking out the window and wondering where the hell you are and there's fish around you. I mean, you're looking out of the underwater room windows straight onto coral, and it's a different experience than snorkeling or diving. Very, very different experience. So we want to use the new underwater room to open the conversation about the plight of coral, about how important the marine life is around coral. 25% of all the species living in the ocean need coral.
I didn't know that.
That's a lot of life.
Wow.
That is, that's determined by the health of coral reefs. We want to contribute to the knowledge behind that, and we just want to contribute what we can in our very small way to trying to do things in a better way for the environment, specifically the marine environment. Yeah, the guests that arrive here are definitely not the kind of people looking for a suntan and a cocktail on the beach. You begin to feel that you are on Pemba Island and that you're not at just another lodge or resort that could be anywhere in the world. You feel that you're here. So we try to keep it as authentic and as real as possible.
In addition to the local staff that are all Pemba people, do they also have any opportunities beyond that with the people on the island?
It's all based on the relationship that, let's take Saidi, for example. He's a service fundi. Yep. So let's take him as one of our service fundis. Fundi in Swahili means an expert.
Fundi, yeah.
Saidi will take care of you the whole time you're at Manta, from when you arrive to when you leave. And you build up a relationship with him, and he gets to know you, and he will feel and understand very quickly whether you are curious about his family and about his life and about what Pemba is and everything else. And if he feels that is genuine, he will invite you to the village, into every part of life. As I was saying, they're very hospitable people and very open. They do not want you walking around in a bikini in the village. So we prepare our guests and we make it, we basically create an environment that's really easy for guests to feel and understand the people of Pemba really, really well. And the tours that we do, like the spice farm tours and the rainforest tours, very popular, a lot of marine activities, etc. But getting to know the people is very, very easy to do. And also through our Kwanini Foundation, through our foundation and through all the work that we're doing with the community. And since all our guests contribute, which is a big thing, we have a special impact contribution.
Which is part of the cost of coming to the lodge.
Yes.
Yeah,
and that's about the rate that you'll pay to stay.
Yeah.
That's a really amazing contribution that goes directly to conservation, to the community, to the development of the community. All of that money goes directly to them. And in so asking, well, is it possible for us to see our contribution and to see the work that's being done? It's the best question that we ever get from guests. Yeah. Because that allows us to really take them and show them what's going on and how we do these things and what's really important for us in the community. So they get a really good sense of what the communities want from that and what they're doing. It's all their ideas of what they want for the
community's ideas.
Correct. And the conversation comes up in different forms and different ways. But it's very much centered around them and their stay and what their stay means to us.
Yeah.
And how we have translated their stay and their contribution as a tourist, how we have translated and moved that into the community and moved it into very important projects like the marine conservation work being done. And we've been able to build the corridor, the Blue Economy Corridor, for example, that you know about. That's historic and probably the thing that we are all incredibly proud of. It started really with this little small area in front of Manta, going back to 2012, where we basically did an experiment in a small area right in front of Manta, off the Manta beach, just 1 kilometer stretch of reef. The experiment was to see how the life around the area would thrive and would grow, and how that life would do if we left it alone and nurtured it. So within marine conservation, there are different levels conservation. And it was decided that this was going to be with the committee of the group of the fishermen and with the local government and everybody else taking care of this area. It was decided to make this into a small little no-take zone. And a no-take zone, we call it a breeding zone. We just don't like the connotation of no-take, because it is a direct benefit, actually. One that's not easy to see, but the fact that it's there is a direct benefit to the whole fishery and the ecosystem itself. But what started with a very, very small little area then became very interesting to the government, to the Department of Fisheries. And when the new Ministry of Blue Economy was brought about with the new president who took over in 2020, they set up this new ministry, incorporated fisheries into this new ministry, and started talking to all the stakeholders about how we're going to develop this blue economy policy within Zanzibar. So we thought, wow, that's brilliant, because we have kind of a really cool little blue economy thing going on here. Now, Tanzania and Zanzibar have historically never delegated management of an area or a natural resource like this to a private group or an NGO. They've always done it through central government. But they're actually made an exception in our case. And we have been able to extend this small little area into a 27,000 hectare marine area, all the way down, halfway down the coast of Pemba Island. So the whole northwestern part, the second half, the top half of the west coast of Pemba is now what we call the Blue Economy Corridor. And marine conservation, the way we define it in the group that we've built, is it's legal fishing. It's fishing done in a sustainable way. It's fishing done with knowledge about where to fish, how to fish, what to fish, etc. So if fishing is done in the right way, there's going to be plenty for all and for the next generation coming up. So that's really what marine conservation is to us. So within that corridor, we want to populate it with all these reef-positive businesses. The new underwater room is actually going to be a tool for the corridor. In other words, all the proceeds and profit from that room will go directly to the Blue Economy Corridor and to the conservation work.
After the break, we're going to bring in Gary Lauder of Blue Alliance, a former African safari guide, now helping translate that vision into a working marine protection area.
Safari Changemakers is brought to you by Artisans of Safari. Beyond the map lies adventure. With nearly 40 years guiding travelers into Africa's hidden sanctuaries, we craft journeys as individual as your fingerprint. Expertly designed, deeply personal. Connect with Karin at artisansofsafari.com for your collaborative consultation. Your safari, your story. Artisans of Safari.
Matt gave us the why behind Manta. Gary Lauder helps explain the how. We're joining Gary in Cape Town. So I know a little bit about you, Gary, even though you and I have never met personally. It sounds like we've crossed paths with people that we know over the years. What inspired your transition from terrestrial safari guiding to marine conservation?
It was probably COVID, actually, forced a change in my career, as it did with many people. My career as it then was pre-COVID was still very much in the safari industry, and things were changing post-COVID. An ex-colleague of mine was working with Blue Alliance Marine Protected Areas, the organization I now work for, sent me a job spec saying, these guys doing this work in the Pemba Channel, and they're looking for somebody to take over all things related to ecotourism. And I thought, well, this sounds perfect for me. So one thing led to another, and I've been with Blue Alliance for 2.5, 2.5 years now. The name originally we were called Blue Finance. And what we do is an unusual. We focus on two things. On the one hand, we are a co-manager for marine protected areas. So we will sign co-management agreements with government to take over marine protected areas. Tanzania, northern Pemba is one of them. But the challenge with marine protected areas globally is what we call this funding gap. It's the funding gap, and basically 70% of marine protected areas in the world are under or unfunded. And they are notionally referred to as paper parks. They are parks on paper, but there is no protection or management of those parks. So funding of marine protected areas is the biggest challenge. And secondly, they're in the ocean. It's very different to managing terrestrial environments where you can put up a fence, drive a vehicle down the fence. So managing it is not as easy as a terrestrial environment. So the idea that our founder, a guy by the name of Nicolas Pascal, came up with is could we find a way to create a sustainable funding mechanism for these marine protected areas? And the idea that we are pursuing is this notion of creating for-profit businesses and using the profits from those businesses once they mature to fund the non-profit entity. So basically what we're doing is working on building businesses that raise awareness for conservation in the tourism space as an example, but will eventually start funding the non-profit work we do. And in the marine environment, there's two channels we've chosen. The one is ecotourism. So we have a number of ecotourism businesses, which is my sphere, but we're also involved in aquaculture. And in the aquaculture realm, we use the same debt financing to do things like mud crab farming, sea cucumber farming. Those not only create food sources, they create alternative livelihoods, and they also, once profitable, will help fund the enforcement or the patrolling, the science conservation, community engagement projects that are currently being funded by grant funding. Reduce the dependence on grant funding and increase the potential for sustainable funding from these businesses, and as many as we can over time.
Just stepping back to the concept of marine protected areas, how did the government decide which area was the marine protected area?
So we're working with local government to have those areas literally drawn out on a map. North Pemba is something that's been in the works for some years now. And the Pemba Channel Conservation Area is North and South Pemba. We're responsible for the northern half of it. And yes, it is effectively, it stretches from the intertidal zone out into the ocean. And it's effectively national land, which is why we work on behalf of government. It's very unusual what we do, because most marine protected areas are usually the ambit of government. They're technically small national parks in many respects. And then within those marine protected areas, you have this concept of zonation. So you have no-take zones, which are highly sensitive areas where fish might be breeding more prolifically, through to mixed-use zones where people are allowed to fish but are also protected. And our objective in this process is to work very hand-in-hand with communities. I mean, ultimately, what we're aiming to do is protect marine biodiversity, but there's nearly 1 billion people on the planet that rely on wild-caught seafood. It's literally the last place on the planet. We hunt stuff in the wild daily as a species, and it's disappearing super fast. So unless it's protected, those communities are going to be without food in the next 10 to 30 to 50 years, whatever. But to go back to your question, it's literally a line on a map. We work on behalf of government. So we will patrol those areas. We will make sure that the fisheries ordinance are enforced. But we also work very closely with communities, trying to educate people on why the marine protected areas are important, why you can fish here and not here. We don't want you to never fish here because livelihoods are super important. But if you don't fish there for 5 years, there'll be more fish than you know what to do with spilling out from that area.
So a lot of education.
And then the science and conservation work. A lot of education work.
Was there a lot of learning that you had to do, a lot of sort of scientific understanding to kind of get from where you were to this?
My role is to build tourism businesses. It's not to understand the science. It's just like any other tourism business. So it might be a liveaboard business, it might be a dive business, it might be the Manta underwater room, and all the profits from that room will go to conservation. There's those pieces to it, and there's everything that goes with it. It's the product design, development, the sales, the marketing, the training of staff. But to answer your previous question on the science stuff, I coincidentally have a science background, but I don't use it at all. I had a Bachelor of Science degree in botany and zoology when I was younger, but the science work falls under our marine protected area management team. Mostly their role is to monitor our effectiveness. So when we take over an area, they'll do baseline studies on coral cover and fish biomass and how much fish are being caught per fisherman per month.
Right. You're the one to trying the money in to pay for
Ultimately
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that ultimately solves to some extent the problem with marine protected areas, which is the funding gap. So I'll give an example of what we're doing on Pemba. We've just launched a business called Coral Reef Safari. It's this shirt I'm wearing here.
Yeah.
And Coral Reef Safari, basically what I've done is my years of terrestrial experience and guiding experience, tried to adapt that to the marine environment. So we've set up and trained people that work out of the Manta Resort in North Pemba. In Manta Resort, it's a guide with a whole bunch of collateral that we've provided and trained in a specific way. But what I've done is spent an incredible amount of time building and developing a whole bunch of guiding collateral, which has never existed in the marine space. And I've taken African safari guides and took them to North Pemba, like terrestrial guides, and sat them down with dive masters and scuba instructors who don't operate like this. They do guide people underwater, but not as naturalists. They're not your typical safari guide who will drive along and point out a tree or an animal and explain its behavior, because you can't talk underwater. So we've created a whole bunch of mechanisms, from dive slates to apps to information, guidebooks, and some of it is used underwater, and then some of it's used back on the boat to do what we call an interpretive interval. In diving, you have this thing called a dive interval. When you're back on the boat, you've got to wait for 45 minutes to an hour before it's safe to dive again. And we're using that time on the boat, and we're calling it an interpretive interval. So all of the collateral and apps and slates and guidebooks are on the boat, which you'll dry off a little bit and you'll sit down and you'll go through your slates and you'll say, okay, what did we see? Did you see? Remember you saw that? And talk about the behavior and identify. We've built, designed and printed a beautiful 70, 80 page, what we call ocean journal that each customer gets, which talks about the location, the wildlife. It's got checklists in it. It's got places for making your notes, your naturalist notes. So basically taking this naturalist concept and putting it on and under the water. And then we charge a premium for it. And our biggest USP is that 100% of the profits go to conservation.
So the key goals, or some of the key goals at the end of all of this, is more fish without overfishing areas, right? More fish, protecting coral reefs.
Our focus is coral reefs environments, and there's so many problems out there that you kind of have to pick one and go with it. Yeah. So ours is marine protected areas in coral rich environments. So the corals are where the fish breed. If the coral ecosystems collapse, a big portion of the ocean ecosystems will collapse. And things like overfishing. If you take fishing as an example, where the local fishermen, the pelagics are fished out, or the deep water fish are fished out, or they can't get to them, so they start fishing more and more intensively on coral reefs. They catch coral reef fish. Coral reef fish, many of them are herbivores. They graze the coral. They keep the algae off the coral. They keep the coral healthy. So suddenly all the herbivores disappear. The coral gets covered in algae, and the coral starts to die. So if there's no fish gardening the coral, then the coral will die. So, but at the same time, they're incredibly resilient ecosystems. So what we do is we say, if we can protect this kilometer of coral, and make sure that no one fishes on it. You have this thing that's called the spillover effect, where the fish would breed quite effectively and quite rapidly in those protected areas, and then it gets too dense and they swim out. And you say to the fisherman, well, if you don't fish here for 2 years or 3 years, everything around here is going to be much richer in fish stocks. So there's just these stretches of hundreds of kilometers of coral coastline with villages, and everyone's fishing and no one's looking after it. No, so we don't expect to be able to protect thousands of kilometers of coral coastline, but if in certain parts of the world we can protect 50 kilometers of coastline, that can make a difference for like an island like Pemba. It'll make a significant difference for an island like Pemba. But the $45 that Matt collects, a portion of it goes to the work that he does through the Kwanini Foundation, which is mostly community work. And then a portion of that money comes to Blue Alliance. So there's the conservation contribution that the guests make at the lodge as part of their fee. That portion of that comes to Blue Alliance for marine protection. Then there's the other two elements which I've mentioned before as well. And the challenge with Pemba is there's not a lot of tourism. It's what makes it quite unique and quite amazing. But there's only a couple of resorts down that coastline.
As you said about Pemba, I mean, that's one of the magical things about Pemba. I run a tourism safari business, and when I send people to Pemba, I mean, it's very different from sending them to Zanzibar, to the main island of Zanzibar. It's magical, it's untouched, and it needs tourism, but as you said, not too much tourism.
Matt's a very entrepreneurial guy. So what he's been toying with this idea of this safari to safari concept, where now that we've installed the Coral Reef Safari at Manta for the first time in East Africa, people will do a terrestrial safari, but it's for the first time you'll be able to go on a genuine scuba safari.
The underwater room, why don't we describe?
It's quite a simple concept, but it is unique in the sense that it, I think, quite possibly is the only one in the world that is quite like this. This is a room that floats about 500 meters offshore from the lodge in the fringing reef on North Pemba, so it's quite flat. And basically, the platform has two halves. The upper half is a deck, and it has a roof that you can sleep on. But underneath, you go down a porthole into a beautiful room with glass sides that's about 4 meters underwater. Beautiful big double bed, air conditioning, and you basically sleeping in the middle of this coral reef environment, and you just exposed to this natural spectacle of fish going mad, hunting, chasing each other, spiraling around this room. And from a guest perspective, you sort of go out late afternoon. The resort brings dinner for you on the boat. You have this beautiful big platter. Watch the sunset because the room literally faces the sunset. Then you spend your night in this underwater glass box, and then wake up in the morning. They bring breakfast out to you.
Typically, you keep your room at the main lodge, and then you have this one night experience. You don't spend 5 days in an underwater room. It's a one night, sort of very special, similar to a star bed where you go out for one night and sleep almost in a tree house for the night. Yeah. But underwater. Instead of the fish being in the aquarium, you're in the aquarium and the fish are all around you. Yeah.
I haven't heard it described like that before, but yes, it's exactly it. The fish are looking in rather than you.
I assume you can turn the lights out at some point and go to sleep if you want to and not stay up all night.
Yeah, it gets quite intense actually if you leave the lights on. Like you actually can't sleep. It's too noisy and too busy.
It's noisy, really, just from all the movement.
From all the movement and there's a lot of activity that goes on at night that doesn't happen during the day. But coral reefs are quite noisy things. There's so many different species doing so many different things all at the same time. It's this constant clicking noise that goes on. Fish are making noise. Animals are crunching on the coral. Fish are crunching on the coral. Fish are swimming past. They're fighting. They're attacking each other. They're breeding. Everything happens all at the same time on a coral reef, and it makes actually quite a lot of noise.
It's like night on safari where you're hearing bucks, all kinds of night sounds. Wow. Last question. Future of the ocean conservation in 3 words.
I think optimistic is one.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of focus, and I think there's a lot of noise happening. And I think people are starting to understand the importance of the ocean, and it's not just a free for all resource. There's a dramatic increase in awareness, because that's where it starts. You know, people don't know what they don't know, then there's no starting point. And the third thing is that it's an imperative. It's a human concept, because if we don't look after them, we're going to run out of stuff. We're going to run out of trees. We're going to run out of animals. We're going to run out of fish. But it's a human imperative. You know, we need to do this thing for us as people. We need to do it for our world and our kids' world. So the future generations and what they've got. And maybe I've got a young child, so maybe it's more prevalent for me right now. I'm thinking, what world is she going to grow up into? But it's like it's an imperative. We don't have a choice to do this.
To wrap it up, let's go back to Matt for his vision for the future.
I'm really wanting to populate this whole corridor with really robust reef-positive businesses. It's almost like the field of dreams scenario, in building it and they will come.
If you build it, they will come.
I really believe that they will come, and I believe we have built it. So, and the people who come are going to be coming here for the very reason that this blue economy corridor exists. They're going to be attracted to what this is about and why this is so important. And hopefully that'll attract a lot of like-minded people who will be an inspiration to the community, that'll be a direct benefit to them, that'll assimilate wonderfully onto Pemba, and that'll help actually this gem of an island be one of the last islands in the Indian Ocean that hasn't been exploited, Karin. It really is one of the very last islands in the Indian Ocean that has not been exploited by tourism. And the will of the people and the will of the community will determine how that looks. They are going to make those decisions. And that's really where my aspiration lies. It lies in them to make the right decisions and make an educated decision on what they have experienced themselves, and very specifically building these economies. You know, the Kwanini Foundation now, we've reduced every single project that we've ever done since 2009 when we started the foundation. We've reduced all of that learning and all of that experience into one thing that we believe has the most impact, and that is education, opening up people's minds as to what opportunities are going to come their way and how to discern and choose what's going to benefit them in the long term. We're also helping them build small businesses. So it's all about small business, entrepreneurship. We do Business 101 courses. We've got lots of people coming in supporting this education on how to run your own little business. What's the difference between private money and company money, and how to reach a market, how to build your product in a cost-effective way without destroying the environment, and doing something that's meaningful and beneficial directly to their bottom line. Many people, we've got village banks that help with finance of all of this, so they're financing themselves now as well.
Amazing.
With interest-free loans, very small interest-free loans like microfinance, and some of those microfinance projects work incredibly well in environments like this, with the kind of societal structures that are prevalent here in the north of Pemba. Works incredibly well. So that's really where we focus our efforts, and that's what the contribution of tourism is doing directly for the people. And tourism is an incredibly important aspect of that, because it brings in more influence than any of those other sectors or pillars of the blue economy. If you think about it, there's more of an influence from foreign people arriving here than anything else.
When you say influence, do you mean money, or do you mean
culturally, just everything? The influence of Yes, the revenue, it's a really important revenue stream, not only for the community, but for the government. It's a very big part of the GDP of Zanzibar. But if you think about it, there's so many influences that come from different people coming here to Pemba.
Yeah. And wanting to be involved long term. Yeah.
And something that gives them something as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a giving exercise.
Yeah.
It's a give.
It gives people something in return. What should we be doing to help with what you're trying to do there?
Well, you're already doing it, Karin. So you just got to continue what you're doing because you've identified the market. Yeah, to answer your question, it's to help us just to spread the word that there are people that do this properly.
Yeah.
I think identifying and qualifying these businesses is really important because there's a lot of greenwashing between you and me. There's a lot of talk out there. And the word sustainable is thrown around a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And ecotourism is also, the term is thrown around with ease. And I don't think people take responsibility as much as they should for using these terms because they are incredibly complicated, expensive investments that should be done for the right reasons. But yeah, just cultivating a sense of purpose in your guests. We can do so much with so little. And we have certainly realized that. I mean, we've come from something very, very small, and now this whole corridor was there, and it's just that it's the spark, and you never know what's around the corner in a group of people, and the power of a group of people who really have the same why. The word is spreading that it is so much more satisfying and so much more of a better experience when it is real. I think people know and feel when something is real, when it's not. If you are promoting something real that enriches the lives of not only the guests, but also the people around the area. If you are doing that, you're creating something very worthwhile. And that's what we can do. We can dig where we stand.
Well, that's our show for today. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time, I'm Karin Jones.